Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So first things first, two things. I'm losing my voice and I've pulled a muscle in my neck. I haven't been able to do nothing today. Wanted to try and trade NASDAQ after lucky call that was in the live earlier on today. Got rid of that long. And then NASDAQ said, you know what, let's just drop down non-stop and then do nothing after that. It was a very tricky time to trade. I didn't trade anything. I wanted to trade NASDAQ, but it just wasn't right. I didn't like it. But Bitcoin did very well, in my opinion. Tonight, what I'm going to do, I want to try and keep this live stream short and sweet for you all. Bitcoin's given me a little bit of a clue as to what could be happening next. Now, this move with NASDAQ, is it preparation for what's to come? A lot of hedgers have been closing off positions because there is the possibility that NASDAQ and the S&P are going to keep on moving up. It looks good on the front of banks because of their earnings. But we didn't really have that much data coming out. Well, good news regarding in the ASM. What was it again? Forgive me. The ASML semiconductor guys, right? And that cost Nvidia quite badly. But guys, Nvidia's still on the cheap. It is very cheap. So I'm going to break that all down for you. All right. Now, I want to know if any of you in your longs paid yourselves today, because Bitcoin was very, very tricky. Very tricky. And I just want to know if you guys did take advantage of it. If you had longs, did you close them? Or did you run any shorts? But Bitcoin seems to be doing this behavior. And what I'm going to do is break down what I think is going to be happening with Bitcoin moving on from now, going into the rest of the week. Okay. Every other day that we're going to be doing the live stream. So like tomorrow, and then of course, Friday and what have you, Thursday and Friday. What I'm going to give you now is based off the daily time frame. And something that has just appeared has happened before, and it happens in the vector candles, and it could be a clue on what's to come. All right. So with that being said, let's get into the program and understand exactly what's been going down. Sorry, man. I'm not feeling it tonight. I'm really not. I am really not. Just looking at your comments here. Longs or lungs. Now, I don't know what's going on with my voice. It's drying out and what have you. I don't know. But yeah. Any questions before we get started? Do we get past 68K is just still a channel and technically rejected now once today off that top of the channel? Can you say hello to Charlotte? Hello, Charlotte. Happy birthday to anyone whose birthday it is, by the way. So yeah, mad love to Charlotte. I am not high. Where on earth are you getting the high from? I've got a stiff neck. I can't move my neck properly. And I'm losing my voice. What kind of green do you think I'm smoking? Anyways, let's go. Now, I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine. I'm just, I don't know. You know, it's whatever it is. Anyways, let's get with the program. Understand what we've got going off. Check this out. So we've got a couple of things happening here, and this is what you got to pay attention to. S&P Advance as traders cancel hedges. What does it mean by canceling hedges? Well, equity hedge investors can do a number of things. They can either sit in cash, they can buy short futures positions, okay? They can go and get puts. They can also invest in credit default swaps, credit swaps, okay? If the idea of the market is going to still continue to move up, now this could be the Trump trade principle, because it looks like Trump looks like he's going to be winning, okay? He's ahead in the polls. So hedge fund managers are going to be thinking, so why are we getting ourselves tied up in other assets to hedge ourselves against an event that's unlikely to happen? That's the logic. Okay. Now, going into the article, it does say that equities dropped from the all-time highs. Nvidia took a smack to the downside. And I'm going to get into Bitcoin very shortly. So look, Nvidia closed the gap, but it's left room for more. Nvidia will recover this gap, and it will recover this red vector candle. It's on its way to it. It recovered the other vector over here, narrowly missing its all-time high. It's getting ready to load up a little bit more. This is where they're buying. Okay. Now, what you've got to be mindful of is when you see this sort of thing happening and the red vector candle doesn't break down beyond the moving averages, that's a good sign. What happens afterwards is irrelevant. The red vector didn't break the moving average. Where'd you see that? Go look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin didn't break the moving average. Okay. Now, in terms of Bitcoin plays and what have you, today for the Platinum membership, I've got a 20% discount on that. So that's pinned to the top of the chat if you want to enjoy some of these setups. Okay. But Euro came through. It did move up. Found resistances around the psychological high to come back down again. Didn't quite come back down to a level that we wanted it to, but it came down to the 1.08812. Actually, oh, it actually did go down to that projection. Happy days. Yeah, okay, fine. Gold really didn't do too much. It just stayed inside of its range. It actually went up and hit the actual stop. So that was an invalidated play on gold. Oil is still moving down. Oh, my days. This is killing me. There you go. So that's the play on oil. It hasn't really done much today. And given that the NASDAQ dropped down today, it hasn't really moved back up again. So it could be an interesting Asian session tonight. And then the NASDAQ. So this setup here, I shared this morning, but I took the trade this morning. And that's the one that I was in during the live stream today. Okay. And these were the entry points, and we wanted to see it sweep to try and mark up to hit the highs, recover the vector candle region. And that's what NASDAQ did. But it also reversed quite aggressively from that point. So just this little move up, okay, came and hit the highs, and then it just instantly reversed to the downside. I mean, flipping out. I would have loved to have short it, but I didn't catch it in time. And then you're playing with the idea of, oh, should I get in now? Don't like shorting as prices are going down. That's not what you want to be doing. Don't want to be shorting when price drops. You want to be shorting as price is rising, okay? Because the idea is you're selling from the highest possible point to then effectively see the return to the downside, which is why you buy as prices are dropping so that you can effectively sell as it moves back up again, right? But cryptocurrency, and this is what I mean about Bitcoin, this is the trickery of it all. This was the setup today on Bitcoin. I wanted to see Bitcoin come down to around the 65,184, okay? And this is all going to be part and parcel of what we're talking about with Bitcoin's clue. You can see that Bitcoin came down to the 65,291, right? Didn't quite hit the entry point, but there was a momentum trade entry at the daily open, okay? Momentum trade at the daily open. Now, if the guys took that trade, but they were watching Bitcoin whilst this candlestick was developing, they would have seen that Bitcoin was on that pump, broke out, hit the target that we wanted to see it hit, which was the 66,497. And we had an optimistic target of 67,330. And Bitcoin went and cleared top side of that green vector, 67,778, then a little bit more, and then it reversed. Okay. Same story for Ethereum and Solana. They did exactly the same thing. They cleared out all the ranges on our setups. Okay. That's that right there for Ethereum. Vector candle block range, shift out, red vector. So just to understand something, in the setup here, where this red arrow is, okay, and by the principle of three. So look, green arrow, green vector, red arrow, green vector. By the logic of three, you expected a green vector candle at that point, okay? We set it over here. If you notice, I've marked 3 red arrows. It's the principle of 3. That means we are expecting one more rally to the upside. You should see a green vector candle appearing where the red arrow is above towards the optimistic target. Go over to Ethereum, and that's where that is, right there. There's your green vector candle on the back of that entry point. Sorry, profit target right there, okay? So when you see this sort of behavior, when you see one vector, two vectors, three, retail's going long at that point. You're going long at this point. Retail's going long at that point. That's when you're selling, okay? Now, what's the clue that I'm talking about? So in front of you, you've got this red vector candle. Now, this red vector candle for day trading purposes it's a range, okay? But given what's happened today in the NASDAQ and the stock market overall, Bitcoin has fared very, very well. But the clue that I'm looking at is on the daily time frame. This right here, if you look at it, we've seen it before, okay? Now, you've got this red vector, this green vector, right? We've got exactly the same story here. So the logic says that we're expecting Bitcoin to mark up from this point to take away the 70,000. That's where there is a ton load of liquidations. Looking at the depth of market over here, you can see, look at all these margins. These are liquidation points, right? Up there, 70,000, you've got 15 million that wants to be sold, okay? So when you look at the way retail is behaving, you've got this one move up where a lot of people are trading the idea of trend lines. So you get someone that does a trend line like this, it's now broken out. So retail's coming into the chart. They've just had a breakout of their trend line. So now everyone's going to be going long in this range, okay? What you've got to be mindful of is the next daily candle is what's going to be important. Go down to the 4-hour time frame. Now, this is going to be important for you all. You see this area here. It is an imbalance, right? Now, this is on the 4-hour time frame. So there's a lot that can happen inside of this zone, okay? You've got to be very mindful and allow your risk to say that you can absorb Bitcoin going down to that point, okay? Because the clue on the daily time frame for me is this wick. Now, if you take the midpoint of the vector candle and go from the vector high to the vector low, ignore the wicks, that's where the midpoint is on the candlestick, okay? Midpoint, mid-popping. What are you typing, Tino? Go away. Anyway, you get the idea. That's where the midpoint is, okay? So the fact that they come back down to reverse away from it tells you that there are bids inside of that zone, holding price, buying more Bitcoin to sell it, okay? So from a holder's perspective or anyone that is in spot trades, has anyone got spot trades? Is anyone in a spot trade right now? What about the miners? What about the miners? Well, let's just go and have a look at the miners. Sorry, man. I can't even move my neck, man. Well, let's just have a look at what the miners are doing. Are the miners selling? Miners position index. Let's have a look. Wow. Man, I can't move. That is painful. Here we go. Miners ain't really selling. Yesterday, they were selling a little bit. No, 8th of October, they were selling. They're not really selling. They might not be selling because they're anticipating price is going to go up. Okay. Now, Bitcoin's done this before when the NASDAQ goes down and Bitcoin ends up trading positive for the day. Okay. Because NASDAQ took a bleed like down 1.34%, which is a distribution day. Okay. But when you look at the volume itself, if the volume isn't above the 50-day moving average, 50-day moving average, okay, which is here. Oops, yes, it is. That's a big sell-off. So investors are effectively selling. All right. But I saw this article, which is kind of scary. US bankruptcy filings spiked to the highest level in 14 years. We're waiting now for interest rates to be cut. Quite frankly, if you've got continuous bankruptcies happening, that's not looking good. In terms of sectors, look at this. You can see that consumer discretionary, that's where most of the actual bankruptcies are happening. You've got financials coming into play as well. All right. Now, it might be nothing. It might not be anything. Right. But I think they're spinning a yarn, ladies and gentlemen, because this is very, very real. These are the unrealized losses and gains for banks, so securities, on investment securities. All right. How can you be sat on $516 billion worth of losses across the banks on the books? No one's talking about it. It's just going to go away, isn't it? Yeah, we'll just get the insurance to cover it when we declare our losses. Won't be good on the shareholders, but never mind. It's farcical. So for the spot traders, okay, this is a good opportunity or potential for Bitcoin to go and aim towards the 70K zone. That means if you're in spot trades right now, or you've just recently opened a spot trade, what's your profit target? If you're going with the idea, I'm hoping and holding, Bitcoin could just come back down. But you've got to make sure that you're taking something off the table. From 66.5 all the way to 70K, right? All right, that's just under a just $3,000 move. Now, I don't know what your size is when it comes to spot. I don't know how much you're actually buying. If you're making a significant amount, take it. Ask yourself this question. Look at these guys here, right? You got these guys that are buying Bitcoin at 8 million. And then it starts to go up, and you can probably assume that they're selling it as it's moving up. But you're buying $8 million worth of Bitcoin. You don't need it to move up that much for you to make a nice, handsome return. But we're making the assumption that this guy here who bought 8 million has sold it. He might still be in the chart. We don't know that. But you can see that for every time price is going down, they're buying, they're selling at the same time. There's like an even distribution of liquidity coming into the chart. When they're bidding, they're getting ready to sell. That's what you've got to really put into your minds, guys, when you're trading Bitcoin. You really have to, because you're going to be the guy that ends up holding Bitcoin when it makes the all-time high. I mean, the last time it did that, it dropped all the way down to 16K. So you would have been waiting a little while to make a bit of a return. Now, this is probably why Bitcoin is holding out right now, because you got a lot of the guys who were previously long on Bitcoin back when it hit the all-time high, having to ask themselves the question whether they should get rid of it or not, because they are now at break even with a very small loss, or if anything, a little bit of profit if they went long around the 64, 65 zone. Okay. So that's something you've got to really take into consideration. The clue for me, for anybody that is new passing through to this live stream, the clue for me on Bitcoin that we're going to see movement to the upside is the fact that Bitcoin has held this midpoint of this vector plus, plus the whole story behind the NASDAQ and the S&P correcting, and Bitcoin hasn't. Okay. Now going into the calendar, tomorrow we have the CPI for the pound, and they're expecting it to come in lower. Look, 1.9% on inflation, happy days. All right, but I'm still paying £6 for eggs. Never mind. But Thursday is the day. Thursday is the day, because that's going to tell us whether euro is going to be marking up or marking lower. They're looking at cutting the interest rates on the euro, so the yield naturally on the euro ain't going to be good. What's the alternative? Dollar. All right. Now, is there any questions? They say history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. What makes this crash different? Do you know what, Chris? That's exactly the logic. Historically, the markets correct and they expand. Why is this time any different? It's not. Before every major correction, we were at the height of expansion. So before the subprime mortgage crisis of 2007, 2008, the economy had expanded for 79 months in a row. Okay? All-time high established, and then it dropped. But the subprime mortgage crisis was declared before the market corrected. It continued to move up 3-4 weeks straight after. Hold on a second. You've got a subprime mortgage crisis, and the market continues to rally up because it's making investors think, okay, the market doesn't care. The market isn't the economy, and the economy isn't the market. People make that mistake thinking that if the markets are good, the economy is good. We ain't in no good economy, ladies and gentlemen. We're not. When the world's debt's surpassing 100 trillion, and the US is making 37 trillion of that. That's bad. Oh, my days. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Every time we make a pump, people get hyped. They FOMO. And the quote of the day, we're going to fly. What happens next? Boom down. This range has been marked by Bitcoin for more than 6 months. It's true. Because there's your proof. That's retail. Retail is buying this. But the boys that have been buying it beforehand when prices were dropping, because ain't no one in retail buying Bitcoin when it drops. And that is proof right there. When you've got people buying into those who are selling. Look, 1.41 million was initially placed at the 65,800, right? Other guy stepped in and sold 11.65 million of it. Because retail's coming in. Crypto Twitter's got the X's and the arrows and the squares and the big faces and the threads. All about why Bitcoin is going to keep on moving up. Hold on to your dear horses and all that crack. For me, ultimately, in order to make sense of what Bitcoin is likely to do next, you have to take the trade. Because you're not going to make sense of it if there's nothing that you're responsible for or accountable for. If you're not putting risk down, where's your analysis? Because your analysis before you take the trade, in my opinion, is dead. It's irrelevant. It really is. Because the moment you open the trade, it's a completely different scenario. Yeah, historically and experience says that you've seen this before. The probability of it happening again is somewhat skewed to the 60s or the 70% range as such. All right. But each moment is different. It really is. And if anyone says that this time it's different in the marketplace, it's laughable because they said exactly the same thing 2020 before COVID. They said exactly the same thing in 2018, and they said exactly the same thing in 2007, 2008. And that was when they knew there was a subprime mortgage crisis, which is why the market rallied for 3-4 weeks straight after, and then it corrected. So yeah, that time was different. Those times were different. This time is different. Please. What are you chatting? Human nature doesn't change, man. I want crypto payment option for TR membership, please. Yeah, that was pretty aggressive, man. I'm sorry, bro. Tina, what happens with alt projects if Bitcoin hits new all-time high? Should we sell alts? Quite frankly, when it comes to altcoins, my honest opinion is this. Bitcoin goes up, altcoin goes up. It's simple as that, okay? Because people will look at the fact that Bitcoin is moving up and it's because of Wall Street in principle, okay? So they'll be like, oh my God, quickly. Because I was looking at some altcoins and I wasn't really seeing altcoins making significant moves. That's the issue, right? Now, a lot of people are going to be looking at the Bitcoin dominance and saying, okay, the Bitcoin dominance right now is at 58.63. Look at that, 58.63. Altcoins should be getting squashed. BNB, not really. HBAR, not really. Dogecoin, all right. JASMY token, okay. Luna, whatever. You know, let's have a look at these other altcoins. Okay, let's just have a look. So, AMP token, oh, well, whatever. KAVA, fine, looks like Bitcoin. FTM, fine. ZEC, fine. TRIAS, okay, relatively. Kai, nice little pump there. Okay, so naturally, these altcoins when there's a sell-off in Bitcoin like it experienced today, these things are going to be subject to way more volatility because they don't carry enough volume. That's why you see lots of altcoins experiencing crazy movement because they don't have the volume behind it. Bitcoin does. You look at Bitcoin's price right now and you say to yourself, hold on a second. Bitcoin is trading 0.49 up for the day. That is awesome. But you understand how much volume is required to get Bitcoin to keep up at that 0.49. All right. But then compare that to an altcoin that's got a market cap of, say, for example, just under 3, 4, or 500 million. Okay. It's all right. It's not too far off with, well, it's a little bit more off than Bitcoin, but Bitcoin with nearly $1 trillion market cap as such, you know, nowhere near it, but it doesn't require that much volume to drop an altcoin. So the answer to your question is, let me put it to you like this. When Bitcoin pumps and you've got an altcoin that's in profit, take it. Because a 0.29% drop in Bitcoin could be a 3% drop on an altcoin. You want to take that risk and hold on to it for dear life, then fine. But if you've got a bag of altcoins and you are genuinely holding them because you believe in the project, looking at every day on the chart is irrelevant for you. You're relying on the project. You're more concerned about what developments are happening in the project as opposed to who's actually buying and selling the coin. Because if you're paying attention to the project, then naturally the price of that project is going to be increasing because it's going to start getting popular. Are they solving a problem? Are they creating a service? And it's no different to investing in a stock. Any other questions? I've got some people saying that the Federal Reserve will drive rates down and cause hyperinflation to fix the US debt issue. Thoughts on that? I don't think. Okay. 3 things you want to pay attention to: bonds, the yields, and the yen. Okay. When you've got the yen depreciating, and let's just go with the idea of inflation. Okay. I doubt we'll go into hyperinflation. Doubt it. Because there's too many things out there that are backed on the dollar: gold, coffee, silver, Bitcoin, your NASDAQs, all your bonds and what have you. The dollar dominance itself is all about purchasing power when you're in these areas, which is why you can see it's trading sideways. We don't really have a trend in the dollar. There is no clear distinction on where investors' heads are at in terms of dollar, right? You can see when we had this rally to the upside, that's when it all hit the fan kind of thing, okay? But with this sideways behavior, there is a lot of accumulation happening. And when dollar decides to break away from this structure, whether it's to the upside, then everyone is consolidating, getting rid of their profits, because when they get rid of their profits on a stronger dollar, they're effectively earning more, retaining more of a dollar, okay? That's what that is. And I don't think that the Federal Reserve will cut rates so aggressively to put the US dollar into hyperinflation. They're not even cutting it by 25 basis points, all right? So the only thing that you really want to pay attention to is the way the Japanese yen is going to be behaving, all right? Pay attention to that and pay attention to the bonds markets. That's going to tell you where we are with inflation, in my opinion. Yeah, I get that, APAR. I do get that. It is a bit of a problem in that sense. Tino, what's your thoughts on KASPA? Do you know what? When it comes to certain projects, ladies and gentlemen, without really diving into the actual project itself, looking at it from the perspective of the hybrid system, you do have these vector candles right here. Okay, it's not an old coin. So there is going to be some profit taking, but if Bitcoin does sustain this rally to the upside, but the general sentiment across the board is all good, then of course KASPA's more than likely going to try and take that 20 cents mark, which could be Bitcoin's blowout point for the all-time high to then come back down. Would you agree that Bitcoin crypto are so correlated to the Wall Street markets that they will decide where Bitcoin goes, nothing else? Mad love to you, bro. 2 years ago, we said that if Wall Street comes into cryptocurrency, you guys will like it and you'll hate it at the same time. All right? Because there's more people with more money in Wall Street than there is people in crypto. Your market cap in crypto is just $2 trillion. Just the NASDAQ alone is $25 trillion as a market cap. So we know that there's more money over there. And the players that are buying and selling NASDAQ assets and the indices themselves, stocks, you name it, there's a lot of money behind them. Now that you've got Bitcoin ETF, BlackRock's picked up $24 billion worth. That's awesome news, isn't it? Yeah, but it's not. They're just eating up the supply. And it's going to get to a point when it goes into the ETF that even though Larry Fink has said that Bitcoin is an asset to itself, it's an asset class to itself, you may remember me telling you about that if Bitcoin were to claim only 1% of the ratio of the investment portfolio that fund managers actually do. So the conventional practice is 60% of the portfolio is distributed with stocks and 40% of it is distributed with bonds, high risk, low risk. You just take off 1% of that 40% and give that to Bitcoin as a separate asset class, and it will be deemed as a safe haven or a store of value. Bitcoin will be flying. The problem we've got, guys, is Bitcoin is yet to get into the mainstream investment portfolios. That's why Bitcoin ain't going to crazy. You know, it's not going crazy move. What's this? Bro talks about Bitcoin up or down, but the only thing Bitcoin has done is grow as a long-term investment. Only one video ever was needed to say Bitcoin is good, but you people tune into this Malaga. Ow. That's funny, bro. That's funny. Well, you've got mad love, JaVale. You've got... This dude's insulted me, but it's quite funny at the same time. It's alt season, baby. Look, man, long-term investment. Yeah, it is a long-term investment. Let's be honest. Bitcoin is a long-term investment, but people want to make money now. That's why they look at every single price movement in Bitcoin. And if you really want to make cash in Bitcoin, then when you do make the cash, take it. Because you can't have the mentality of long-term investment when you've got profit in the chart, because you're like, oh, I could make more money now. And then it comes down, it goes against you, and you're like, it's a long-term investment. Shut up, man. If you make some profit in Bitcoin, take it. Because one way or another, Bitcoin's going to go up and it's going to go down again. So what you've got to do is just anticipate that when it goes down, it's cheaper. So then you start buying it, and then you make some more profit. And then you'll come to realize that you only need to hold on to the position for less amount of time, and you don't need that much of a move to make a lot of cash. That's the goal. That's why you see these guys bidding Bitcoin for 8-9 million, and they're probably selling it as it moves up. They don't need to hold on to it for dear life. That's the fact. Why is Cardano down for the day when Bitcoin is positive? Do you know what, man? ADA itself is, this is worse than XRP. No offense to anyone. I've got XRP. This is an absolute shocking asset. You know? It just doesn't make sense. Everyone's hoping for the $3 again. You guys are kicking back. It's worse than XRP. This ain't stable. It's rigid. It ain't going nowhere. At least XRP does sometimes have a little bit of volatility. I mean, come Oh, wow. Ladies and gentlemen, do you remember the box? Do you remember the box that we drew? Yeah? Still hasn't broken out of that box. What a joke. Oh, God. Anyway, I gave the clue at the start of the live stream. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Tino, can you show us how to trade today's action on the NASDAQ when the Brinks box was broken? Quite simple. And it's easily said than done. But the best way for you to do it, okay, is when you start your trading day, first thing you want to do is you wait for the Brinks box to complete, okay? You have to wait for this box to complete. Once the box has completed at 3 p.m., which we used to call the magic hour, take the high, take the low. Correlate it to structure. Look left. Yeah, you got vector candles, so you could mark them off, hypothetically. You could mark them off and say there's a possibility they could go to that. All right? So if they can't get above the high, then I'm going to be looking for the low. Well, place an order at the break of the Brinks box, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you cut your loss, move on to the next trade. That's trading. There's no magic sauce to it. You're just playing a range. First hour that's formed, wait to see if the high gets taken or the low gets taken. Look what Bitcoin did today. Bitcoin bullied everyone. It swept the high, then it come down, swept the low, and then came back up. Wow. Always pay yourselves. Any other questions, guys? Do you think Trump coming in office will rally Bitcoin like it did back when Elon said he was picking it up a few years ago? Listen, the election will bring volatility. It's the only biggest event now. Interest rates was the big event. But you've got too many variables that are impacting whether we have interest rates higher for longer or not. Right now, it's about Trump or the presidency. If Trump is going to win by principle of the polls and where he's going ahead with those, then the market's going to be pricing that in. Market's going to rally, and then Trump wins, for example, and then everything just drops from there. Remember, he's going to be cutting taxes, which can be a problem for inflation. All right? So it's going to be very interesting. I do believe Bitcoin is going to break the all-time high before the presidential election. But that's only based on the idea that we get the interest rate cuts that we're going for in November and December. So it's going to be an interesting one. It really is. Tina, when you make your plays on NASDAQ, is it options? How much of portfolio do you risk on each trade? Well, when you're trading on the futures markets, I mean, one lot size or one contract, you need to have a margin. You have to put up a margin of $1,000. Okay. And so it's $1,000 for every contract that I take. Max, I'm using 6 contracts on the NASDAQ and then 8 or 9 on the S&P. All right. So at minimum, I'd be all right to have about 20 grand in my trading account, because I'm going to make another withdrawal and start again around 20K this time rather than 5. And then even with 20K in the account, I'm never going to use 50% of the account in terms of margin. That means 10 contracts on the NASDAQ. I will never do that in one sitting unless I'm in a profitable position and I scale into it and I've got profits locked in, then that's fine. But initial opening of the trade itself, max 1 to 2 contracts on the NASDAQ when you're playing certain balances, and just keep doing 1 to 2 contracts, grow the account, withdraw, take money out. I'm not interested in making it go to massive sums. I'm continuously withdrawing and just trading with anything from 20, 30 or 40K. But that's all profits. So I'll pull those profits out and then start again with about 20K. We started with 5, we did well. And then now we're going to do the same thing again, but this time with 20K. but still using the same amount of contracts as I did with 5K. Okay. So it's all about your risk, ladies and gentlemen. You can't risk too much of your account. There's no point. You're going to get smacked. It wouldn't surprise me to see a major black swan miraculously appear, even if it looks like Trump is going to take it as we approach the date. Listen, you've got to understand that there is a low probability event that could actually happen. What that low probability event is, who knows? Who knows? Tino, do you think your earlier projection for 80K is back into the pick? Probably. Probably. Presidential election, maybe. All right. What news should we see for the dollar to rally against the euro? Well, the main financing rate's coming out on Thursday. So that means they're going to be cutting the interest rates on the euro. So the yield on the euro ain't going to be looking too good. But they have had some optimism in the German economy. So they're kind of feeling like everything's all good, but it's not. So that's what's going to effectively bring the dollar up. I live on a boat and I've never seen a black swan. You know what? Ow. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, mad love and respect for passing through to tonight. I've got to go. I've kept you way too long. Be sure to like and subscribe on the way out. Remember, there's a discount on the platinum membership pinned to the top of the chat. All right? Take care of yourselves, gang, and I'll be tuning into you all tomorrow. All right? See you in a bit, gang. Peace. Stop flipping blinking, bro. I hate it. I'm going to wear glasses.